Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
And it's international break. She believes Nations League. Almost said Nations Cup. We're here. I'm so pumped for our episode today, Allie.
Yay, I am too.
Oh, come on now. Tell me you didn't love watching Japan play. Tell me.
No, to be fair, I'm like, this is why I love Japan. I'm not going to lie. This is like what with the sheep I was like, this is what I've been banging on about, people. This is why I love to watch them play. And I also like the fact that my other prediction has come true, but we'll get on to that.
Listen, you've had some pretty terrible predictions over the years, but I will say your ones from last week, all of them very correct. So applause to you. Kudos.
Woo, I'm getting better at this.
So we're going to kick off this episode with She Believes, and then in the back half, we're going to talk England, and then we're going to quickly preview the WSL and the NWSL, because that is about to kick off too. But before we do all that, we're going to do a quick roundabout, just a couple of news topics. First and foremost, Allie, you're the one who sent this to me. You want to do this one first?
I do want to do this one first because as if Aston Villa's woes couldn't get any bigger, it was announced as we are recording, so Monday, the 24th of February, that Adriana Leon has made her move to San Diego Wave. She's been Villa's top scorer with Rachel Daly and Gabrielle Nunez. So this is going to be a huge missing chunk for Villa in this last part of the season.
Has she scored more than Daly, or you mean she's among the top three?
She's in the top three. The WSL announced who the top three were, and it's like her, Daly, and Nunez.
Yeah, it's a big loss for Villa. It points more to this idea that there's some kind of culture thing going on there that has not been resolved. And I'm not entirely surprised. Adriana Leon, Canadian international, played her college soccer in the U.S. She spent the majority of her professional career in the NWSL, starting with the Boston Breakers in 2013. She's played with so many clubs, Allie. Formerly known as the Red Stars, the Western New York Flash, Sky Blue, which is now Gotham, Seattle Reign. Most recently, in 2023, she was on loan to the Portland Thorns. And now she heads down to Southern California. So I'm not entirely surprised by this. And I think it's a good move for both club and player.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, she'll be linking up with old Villa compatriot Kenza Darley is at San Diego Wave as well, which is going to be a big thing for her because they played so well at Villa. So I can 100% see why she's gone to San Diego, but I think Villa are insane to let it happen.
I would agree. I completely agree. All right. News point number 2. If you've been on social media in the past week, you probably have seen this, but we're going to talk about it quickly anyways. There's an update in the trial of Luis Rubiales. He was found guilty, and Spain imposed an 18-month fine equating to 20 euros a day on Rubiales, and the ruling further prohibits him from going within 200 meters of Jenni Hermoso or communicating with her for exactly 1 year. He was, however, acquitted of trying to coerce Jenni Hermoso into saying that the kiss was consensual. And additionally, the former Spanish national team head coach Jorge Vilda was also found not guilty of coercion, along with other Spanish Federation staff members at the time, including Albert Luque and Ruben Rivera. So much to discuss here, Allie, and we're going to go through it pretty quickly because I guess there's not all that. It's not like a debate or anything like that. It's just like it needs to be commented on because I think there's two parts of this. There's the guilty verdict and then there's the sentencing, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I posted about this on our socials and I was like, justice has been done. And they were like, justice hasn't been done. Look at the punishment. And I do want to clarify that because, yeah, we're going to talk about the punishment in a bit, but it is so important that we got a guilty verdict for a sexual assault because out of every 10,000 sexual assaults, only 6% make it to the reporting stage, never mind trial, reporting stage. 2% of those get to trial stage and less than 1% of those get a conviction. So yes, the fact that we can say that he is a sex offender, he has been convicted of a sex offence is important, and that is justice just to get to that stage. And then when you read what Jenni said in her statement, you tend to really feel the importance and the weight of that.
I'll just read it quickly right here. Jenny Hermoso posted in Spanish, so this is a loose translation to English. Quote, "After all, this will set an important precedent in a social environment in which there's still much to be done." She said a couple more things, and then she concluded with, "And now, yes, it's over," which in Spanish is "se acabó," which I think will bring us full circle back to that hashtag "se acabó" that was circulating on the internet right after this happened. And I think you nailed it, Allie. I think I don't really have anything to add to that. I think you absolutely nailed that.
Yeah, no, so as we said, the punishment doesn't really fit it. You know, it is very lenient, but at the same time, I think any punishment really would have just been a sort of a token gesture. It's more about the title and the actual guilty verdict. So let's talk about She Believes. This has been a cracking tournament so far for anybody that hasn't been watching. Where have you been?
For anybody that hasn't been Australia.
For anybody that's not been Australia. But let's talk about it. Now, obviously, as we record, the final game has not been played, so we do not know at this time who is going to take it. But it is coming down to the final game, which is very exciting.
So that final game is being played today, Wednesday, when this episode is dropping. So we really had no way of getting that in. So maybe international part 2 next week, Allie?
Maybe a little bit.
Mark? Maybe a little bit. But obviously what you're referring to is that Japan and the United States both have 2 wins, no losses. Japan actually sit ahead of the United States because of the goal differential, because they cannot stop scoring. So let's start it off with Japan, because it was one of the couple of predictions that you were correct about, Allie. And everybody talks about She Believes being a terrible title for a tournament.
It is a terrible title for a tournament.
But right now, I'm going to do it. She believes that Japan are on fire. What is going right? I mean, we saw them in the World Cup. We saw the firepower that they can bring. We saw that when they're at their best, they're basically unbeatable. But we also saw them really flame out, and we've seen them have some very average or below average performances since then too. But everything has clicked to a T for Japan right now. What do you think it is?
I think they finally got that balance right, because they were...
The balance of what?
Well, they were once just a really good defensive team, and occasionally someone would go out and they'd pop up and score the odd goal here or there. They finally have got that balance where, yes, they will be defensive. Yes, you can have that low block, but they have got players that score goals for fun. I'm talking about Tanaka, who has scored some beauties so far. You look at the Japan-Colombia game, within 8 minutes she'd broken down Colombia and scored. You know, they got their first goal within the first minute. Like, they are becoming an attacking team. They are not just a defensive team that does the low block and might be able to pop a goal here. They've got a great midfield lineup. They are controlling the midfield, which when we get onto the USA-Japan game, that is what I'm excited to see, is how the midfields line up. It's just all sort of slotted into place, and the players that needed experience have got the experience, and they're just having some fun with it.
Mina Tanaka has 4 goals in 2 games right now.
Golden Boot.
There it is. Golden Boot winner right there. Japan beat Australia 4-0 in the first game and beat Colombia 4-1 in the second game. The United States beat Colombia 2-0 and beat Australia 2-1. I think you've nailed it, though, about Japan. It's almost like it's a complete balance across the board, where it's a balance of their defensive unit and now adding those attacking pieces. They've got that balance that we talk about in terms of veterans and youngsters and everybody kind of coming into their prime at the same time or at the right time. They've got it. It's unfortunate for them that there's not a major tournament this year, because I think they could do really well. They just need to hold on for a couple more. But they've been on fire. However, I am interested to see how they hold up against the United States defense, because you look at Australia and they have been, in shambles defensively. I mean, the U.S. broke them down within 45 seconds even, and Colombia have not been all that strong defensively either in terms of a unit. So it'll be interesting to see how this like offensive firepower for Japan comes up against a stronger defensive unit.
Yeah, no, and I completely get that, but they do have that firepower. And also, you look, they played a very different midfield against Australia than they did against Colombia. So like, Yui Hasegawa didn't feature against Colombia at all. And we've talked about her so much on this podcast about how she is that midfield maestro that likes to pull the strings.
She's so important for them.
She's so important for them. And she didn't even feature against Colombia, and they were such a aggressive, attacking, complete performance. She will feature against the USA. I'll make that prediction that she will be in that game.
You're trying to go 3 for 3 on predictions there, huh?
I'm going 3 for 3, my friend. But I reckon she will be. And that is going to be hard because you've said it before. The game has been won and lost in that midfield. And I'm excited to see how your lot go up against them.
Well, let's talk about your second prediction. And it was one that listen, I thought that they would get scored on, but I didn't think that they would get literally destroyed and blown up like they did. The Matildas, I mean, this is the worst I've seen them look in many, many, many moons. You made the prediction. You thought that they were going to get absolutely broken down on defense. But you mainly talked about the imbalance in players, and I think that's correct in terms of like that is contributing, where they have a lot of players who are starting to age out, and they have a lot of youngsters who do not have a lot of years or caps or experience at the national team level under their belt, and that is a very tough place to be. But I'm gonna throw in the coaching. We loved, I think, what was his name, Tony Gustafsson? We loved Tony for the Matildas, and I think he brought a level of trust. The players trusted him. I thought that he worked with their defensive shape really well because the Matildas have always been a more attacking side, and with this coaching change, I think that has all gone out the window.
100%. 100%. Like, we talked about how in the World Cup, like, you barely noticed that Sam Kerr was missing because they managed to play a very different kind of football, and they were beautifully attacking and they were much better defensively. But even changing the defense, because they changed the back line compared to what they played against Japan, they had against you guys, and it's still leaking goals. Like you said, 45 seconds it took Lynn Williams to break them down.
She was offside, but
I was going to say she was offside.
They still broke them down, yeah.
But she still managed to break them down, and it's just, I don't know, is it a lack of confidence? Is it a lack of playing together? I don't know what it is, but it was so bad. Like,
when you see this kind of breakdown, the answer is all of the above. Because if there's one thing that needs to be fixed, that's an easy fix. When there's a million things that need to be fixed, that's a hard fix. And so the answer for Australia is all of the above. And that's a tough place to be in because you got to go back to basically square one or base zero and start from scratch. I guess that kind of leads us into the U.S. Women's National Team because every team finds themselves in this inflection point at some point. And the question becomes, what work have you done with your young players to give them experience so that they can step into those roles more easily, more fluidly, and quicker? And Australia has not done that. And the U.S. Women's National Team before now had certainly not done that. And now under Emma Hayes, that's one of the first issues that she's trying to correct.
So let's talk about the team I feel like isn't getting much attention, which is Colombia, because they aren't getting as much attention because obviously they are also 2 for 2 in losses, not as badly as Australia, but I feel they are going to get lost in this mix because they've got no hope of winning it. They're not as bad as Australia.
Yeah, their results are as follows. Their first game, they lost 2-0 to the United States. In the second game, 4-1 against Japan. I saw this statistic online and I thought it was really telling, and this could be a really good jumping off point for this conversation about Colombia. You look at the difference in compensation between players on the U.S. Women's National Team and players on the Colombian Women's National Team. Colombian players on average get $80 a day, $30 when they're playing in Colombia. U.S. women's national team players get $800 a game, plus a $10,000 bonus for a win.
That is insane. That is insane.
I feel like that needs to be at the forefront of the conversation about Colombia, because this is a team that can have better results than what I just said, because they have so much talent and they can compete at the top level. And I'll also just say, I mean, this is, on topic but off topic. I am consistently impressed by Mayra Ramirez. Even I go into games knowing that I am always impressed by her, and yet I'm still at every game so astounded by how good she is and how much she can influence a team and influence a game. They're a completely different team with and without her, and we've already talked about this on this podcast, so I won't go further on that rant. But I don't know, we talked about this in the World Cup a lot, Allie, where it's almost cliche at this point to say it, but it has to be continued. We have to keep saying it. Investment matters. It makes a difference when these players can actually be full-time soccer players and have support that they need mentally, physically, emotionally to perform at their best. The sky is the limit. And I believe that for Colombia, and they just don't have the investment behind them to get there. And that's it.
And that is true. And the problem you have, because you talk about like the standout players, the three big standout players from the games are the three that play their football out of Colombia. So, obviously Caicedo plays in Spain, Pavi plays in England, Ramirez plays in England. So the age-old question is well, if they're not facing tougher competition each week, then is that going to be regression? But do you really want to take them out of Colombia? Because then you're taking investment and opportunities away from Colombian football as a whole. So it becomes that age-old question.
They need to invest in their league there.
Exactly.
And players who play there need to get paid a good salary, because level of competition or not, I think that the almost more important thing right now is just baseline health and happiness as a player, and not having to work two jobs, and having a trusted, trainer that you can work with if you get injured. Because you look at the level of individual talent, it's high, it's there. And they probably, more of them can go play in Europe. But what needs to be fixed first is just baseline.
I will say that I don't think Colombia have embarrassed themselves, and I do think that it's been a good showing for Colombia. I wouldn't say they'd been cooked like I did with Australia. I feel like
no, I was a very different scoreline, the Japan against Colombia scoreline versus as compared to the Japan Australia scoreline. Like, Japan dismantled Australia. They didn't quite dismantle Colombia.
No, and I would say you guys didn't dismantle Colombia. Like, you guys had two great goals against them, and we'll talk about it with the USA. But it wasn't like...
It was such a fun game. I think that's going to be my favorite game of the tournament, no matter... I just can't see any other game living up to it. Whenever those two teams play, there is just like an openness and a physicality and a fire about the game that is just so fun and spicy.
So you're excited. Okay, let's have Sarah have her moment. Let's talk about the USA.
I don't have all that much to say, I'm not going to lie. Lily Johannes was a revelation in that first game, an absolute revelation. There is no other word for it. That's the word that describes her performance. An absolute revelation. I'm just going to keep saying it.
I'm impressed with the youth players. Like the Thompson sisters and how they've played. Yeah, Sentinel.
Incredible.
Brilliant.
What a banger. What a banger of a goal.
Coops, did fabulous. Like, you've had some really great youngsters. This is the tournament, like you said, about getting the youth experience. This is the tournament to do it. And they've absolutely held their head high, played their absolute hearts out. And do you know what? I'm here for Sonnet as captain as well.
Saucy Son got her 100th cap. That was incredible. I actually really loved how they spoke about her on the broadcast, because, it's only been in recent years that she's become a starter on the U.S. Women's National Team. Her entire U.S. Women's National Team career has been coming off the bench, being the utility player. Do you want me to play outside back? Do you want me to play center back? Do you want me to play center mid? Where do you want me? And now she has found a little bit of a hold. And I love them giving her props for that, because most of her caps have been really hard earned coming off the bench like that. But back to the young players. I tweeted this and I'll say it on the podcast. Allie Sentner, everybody's going to talk about that banger of a goal she scored. But more importantly, she played a complete 90 minutes and she played really well. And she looked loose. She was contributing. She was creative. I loved what she was doing on the field. Michelle Cooper had a great debut. Jaden Shaw in the second game played in that number 10, the attacking center mid role. And I know the U.S. Women's National Team has a lot of number 10s. Jaden Shaw has been kind of put at the 9 a lot. And Shaw herself has talked about part of the reason she went to North Carolina Courage is because they were affording her the opportunity to play in that number 10 role. And that's where she wants to develop. That's what she wants to play. And I thought she played really well at that position in that game. She was in the second game, the U.S. looked much less creative, but I thought she was really driving a lot of the creativity. I loved how she played. And can we just give it up for Katarina Macario? Anybody who saw her play at Stanford knows what this girl can do. And to see her finally coming back into her form, it makes me really happy. I think she's on the trajectory that we all thought she was on back a few years ago, and then she tore her ACL. I think she's right back there, and I'm really excited to see. I mean, I don't envy Emma Hayes. There's a lot of decisions to be made, and it's champagne problems right now. You know, the most interesting, I think the reason I say Lily Johannes first is because the biggest question mark is that midfield role. And I think Sam Coffey has the number 6, the kind of like holding center mid role nailed down. But the 8 and the 10 have been the question mark. Lindsey Horan has shifted between the 8 and the 10. Rose Lavelle comes in and she can play the 10 really well, but her and Lindsey Horan don't really play all that well together. Rose Lavelle gets hurt very easily. Then you bring in a player like, you've got Jaden Shaw, you've got Katarina Macario. They can all play the number 10 as well. And so maybe Lindsey Horan plays the 8, they play the 10, but then who's the 8? Who's the other 8 if it's not Lindsey Horan? And the answer so far has been Corbin Albert.
That's not the answer. I'm going to say that right now.
That's right. And the answer is Lily Johannes, because the question marks for me have been that those two midfield positions and what is the best pairing? What is the best 8-10 pairing? Not who's the best 8, who's the best 10. What is the best 8-10 pairing? And Lily Johannes made such a strong case for herself in the 8. She so effortlessly moved back and forth. The U.S. were playing in a defensively, on defense. Their formation was a double pivot. It was 2 6s. And on offense, that shifted. And Lily Johannes was covering so much ground, so quickly, so effortlessly, so well, that you wouldn't have even noticed that she was having to track her butt back on defense to get in the double pivot with Sam Coffey so much. You just couldn't tell because she was everywhere. I thought she was outstanding. But that's where I think the weakness did lie. I think it still does until Emma Hayes can nail down what that combination is, and maybe it's like a 3-person rotation and not just 2 players. I still think that's the weakness because it drives how the U.S. play. That's why the difference between the first and second game were so vast, is because it was a completely different style of play based on who was driving those, who was pulling those strings from the 8 and the 10.
Should we play our game of predictions?
Are we predicting for games that are happening today on Wednesday? All right, let's do it.
So, if you haven't worked it out, the games are Japan versus the USA and Australia versus Colombia. Let's go for the game that doesn't actually really matter that much. Australia versus Colombia.
Colombia will take it.
Oh, you say that very definitively.
I've just watched them play and I've watched Australia play. And I think that Colombia can take it to Australia.
I think it will be a bit of a goal fest because
it'll be a fun game for sure.
It'll be a great fun game. I think it'll be a bit of a goal fest. I do think Colombia will take it. But I think it's going to definitely ask more questions of Australia than answer them. And this whole tournament is going to ask a lot of questions instead of answering them. But I'm going to give it to Colombia, and I reckon that it's going to be a bit of a goal fest. Now, the important one. USA versus Japan. Who wins? Who takes the Shibboleth? Is it a cup? Is it a shield? I can't remember. We won it once. I can't remember what we got.
You guys really got to let it go. This is a tough one. I'm not going to lie. And I don't, it's not a cop out, but I do really think that it entirely depends on what lineup Emma Hayes goes with. All right. I think it's the US.
Of course you do.
Stick with my girls.
Of course you do. Would you like to guess who I'm going with?
I think you're going to guess Japan. And
I am.
It's a smarter pick. If you look at both of the games that both of these two teams have played, that is the correct pick.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it just to be contrary. I'm not just doing it to play devil's advocate.
I knew you were going to pick Japan. Yeah,
Japan have become the team that I've been willing them to be for so long, and I do think that and it is going to come down to that midfield. And you said it yourself, the formation that the US have got right now, they haven't quite nailed down the perfect pairing, and it's like Lily Johannes is fantastic, but young and inexperienced. If you go for Corbin Albert has not been playing well, and this is not a bias thing. You just have to watch, and she's just not picking the passes right. She's not doing it, and I'm like, you've got a Corbin Albert versus a Yui Hasegawa. My money will be on Hasegawa every single time.
I think that this will tell us more about both teams, though. Watching these two teams come up against each other, it'll test how good they really are. And I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. If anything else from this game, I'm super excited to see how it all pans out, because I think it's going to be a cracking game of football regardless of the result, which means now it's going to be something like really boring, like a 1-0 win.
All right, if you are listening on Wednesday and you're wondering, the games are as follows. The Australia-Colombia game will be played at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Hold on to your hats if you're on the eastern part of the United States, and Allie, you just go to bed. The US-Japan game will be at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't know why the games are so late. Why are they so late?
That makes no sense. Where are they played?
They're going to be played on the West Coast. They're in San Diego. That's why.
There you go.
Yeah, I still don't love it. All right, well, that's okay. I'll be up. I'll tell you how it goes, Allie.
Thank you.
Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. Nations League edition.
Group 1 of the Nations League. We saw the first matches kick off this week. Scotland suffered a 1-0 loss at the hands of Austria. Northern Ireland lost to Poland. However, it was the Germany v Netherlands game that caused the most excitement. Despite taking the lead first, the Netherlands found themselves 2 goals down just after half-time. A 60-minute goal allowed them to get back into the game, and it ended 2-2.
On to Group 2. In Group 2, we saw France take Norway down with a 1-0 win. Republic of Ireland also beat Turkey with a single goal, whereas this year's Euros hosts Switzerland could only manage a 0-0 draw against Iceland.
Group 3 saw the most exciting match of the week. Spain versus Belgium. Belgium were leading 2-0 against the current world champs for 72 minutes. However, Spain proved why they hold the title as they fired 3 goals in 15 minutes, including 2 goals in extra time. They took the game 3-2.
And finally, to Group 4. We saw Wales lose to Italy 1-0, and in the sportsmanship derby, Denmark lost to Sweden 2-1 despite Harder's early goal. We also saw a huge win for the Czech Republic, who beat Croatia 4-0. Over to England and the Lionesses, who have 2 matches in this international break, one against Portugal and the second against Spain. The first game, the Lionesses drew 1-1 to Portugal. A surprising result, in most people's opinion. And the second game against Spain, the one that everybody really has circled on their calendar, is happening today, Wednesday. Perhaps we should have dropped this podcast episode on Thursday, Allie. So it's happening today, Wednesday, when this episode is dropping. So another reason to discuss more international stuff next week. But nevertheless, I have to ask you this question because of the 1-1 result to Portugal. Same question that the United States had to answer leading up to the 2023 World Cup. Is it time to sound the alarm bells? The Euros are this summer, and you are drawing to Portugal.
The alarm bells should have been sounded ages ago. Look, I said it last week, and I keep saying it. I'm bored of this lineup. I'm bored of the fact that I have to talk about the same issues with England, which we've had since... even during the World Cup, never mind since the World Cup. Like, it's
all coming out now.
It's the same thing over and over again, and I'm done. Like, I'm so bored of it. Like, Why did Portugal manage to get a goal back? Because they worked out how to mark Walsh out the game.
That's the only thing that happens when you play opponents now.
Yeah.
Is they figure out how to take Kira Walsh out of the game, and England can't figure out how to play without going through Kira Walsh. And that's been the chess game the entire time.
Yes, exactly. This is exactly it. And it's going to be even worse against Spain because she played in Spain for so long. They're all going to know how she plays. But it's genuinely the only way we seem to be able to make it work is if we run everything through Kira Walsh. We have no talent coming up, it seems, to take the places of injured players. We just haven't had that time to make them gel because we've got no Greenwood, we've got no Hemp, we've got no Stanway, and it's very unlikely we're going to have them for the Euros because all of them have got quite serious knee injuries.
When I texted and said that the Lioness's roster is looking a little thin, this is what I was talking about.
Yeah, but
obviously thin is all comparative and whatever. But for England,
I thought we had the thing, but they're just not connecting on any way, shape, or level. And also there seems to be this inflexibility, and I promise this is not just going to be me ranting, but there seems to be this inflexibility with Serena's game plan, which is the game plan is the game plan regardless. So yeah, we came up, had a good goal. Russo's goal was beautiful against Portugal. It was a good goal. And then we go in at half-time. Portugal have worked out what we're going to do, and they change their game plan. And we don't adapt whatsoever. We carry on with this game plan that is not working, and then they get our goal back because this game plan is not working, and we just don't know how to adapt. And the press conference afterwards with Millie Bright and Serena was like, oh, nothing to worry about, but we do have some work to do. There are plenty of things to worry about.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I don't mind the same starting lineup because this is the time where you really have to cement your best 11 because you're headed into a major tournament. So I don't mind that. And I don't love the like-for-like substitution of Grace Clinton just very clearly taking over Stanway's role at the number 8. But I think Grace Clinton's a great talent, and I think she's holding it down well. But you're right. There's a lack of creativity when you look at this lineup. It's, the same expected 4 across the back, and Charles, Bright, Williamson, Bronze. You got Walsh at the 6, Clinton at the 8, Toon at the 10, Russo at the 9. I would have loved to see, F it. Let's put Lauren James at the 10 and see what happens.
Lauren James is a 10. This is the other problem I've got. We're playing players out of position because you're right. We do need to cement that down. But Lauren James is not a winger. You put her at the 10 and watch her fly.
You watch her fly also because if you can't get the ball to Kira Walsh, fine. Skip a line. Give it to Lauren James and see what happens. Right? Yeah. If you're having trouble at the center of your pitch, why not put one of the best players on the ball in the center of your pitch? That's what doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And so you asked me the question, is it time to sound the alarm bells? I can't even see England getting out of their group at the Euros. Never mind.
Yeah. Let's review who's in their group because that's a big statement.
I was going to say, never mind defending the title. If we keep playing like this, we are going to get battered.
Absolutely. I mean, so that is a big statement, but it's also not when you look at the group that England's in. It has France, Netherlands, and Wales. So you have to advance over France or the Netherlands or both, but you've got 2 really, really tough opponents in there. I agree with you. It's certainly alarm bells time.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know what the answer is because I'm not seeing the talent pathways aren't quite working the way they were, so I genuinely don't know what the answer is, but maybe it's time to freshen up the formation and, like I said, come up with a different game plan than passing it through Walsh because teams have worked that out.
Yep. I think you're right. Are England approaching a bit of an inflection point, the same one that we talked about that the US got to, that Australia are certainly in right now? Is it time to start looking at the young talent and bringing them in more than England have done? Is it only downhill from here until you can revamp?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I do. I think it is. And it makes me sad because, I get excited to watch England and I'm not excited anymore. And that's the sad thing for me, is the fact that I'm not excited to watch them anymore because it is the same old players. It's the same old. And yeah, we want the best 11, but I mentioned it last week, there are players that aren't getting a look in that could really freshen everything up,
Okay, well, I'm going to make you make a prediction too then. England and Spain. Who takes it?
I think Spain are going to take it 2-1.
I think so too. I'm sorry. But I will be watching as long as it's not too early. That game is happening, of course, as we said today, Wednesday, the 26th of February. It is at 3 p.m. Eastern, which means that if you're in the UK, it's at 8 p.m. your time. A wonderful time to watch some football. And great news for all of us in the US because you can watch it during the workday if you're able to, I guess.
So back to what I find exciting. The WSL is back in action this weekend, which will bring us officially into March. Can you believe? Where has this year gone already?
You know what happens in March?
What happens in March? Is it March Madness?
Chelsea and City play each other 4 times.
Oh, yeah, so they do.
It's at the end of March, though. We still got a little time.
We still got a little time. Yeah, the FA Cup didn't want to be funny because they could have done it.
Yeah, it could have happened.
So let's have a look at the games this weekend. Is there anything that is super exciting for you that you are like, I'm all about it?
Of the matchups this weekend, I am curious to see how Tottenham and City face off against each other. I'm obviously excited because Arsenal play West Ham. And I think we're going to talk some trash on the next week's episode.
It's our derby.
It's our derby. That's right. It's the women's soccer show derby. What about you?
To be honest, the one I'm like really uber excited about, to be fair, it's the Aston Villa Everton. It's Aston Villa Everton because obviously Villa have now lost Leon, which is interesting. But these are the ones because I'm like, I don't want to be pessimistic and there could be an upset, but I'm looking at the other matchups and apart from maybe Crystal Palace Liverpool, which also could throw up a spanner in the works, I can pretty much predict who's going to win what. Because that's the way this season's going. And I'm not saying that's what the WSL is like. I'm just saying this is the way this season's going at the moment. Is that, you know what? I think Chelsea are going to beat Brighton. Sorry, Mike. The likelihood is, unless we manage to do something spectacular, Arsenal's going to beat West Ham. Spurs are probably going to get battered by Man City. So for me, it's those are the two games where anything could happen.
If I'm going to pick an upset, I think the upset that could happen this weekend is Leicester City beating United.
Ooh, yes, because they're coming back off a very good win against Aston Villa. We shall see.
And moving from the WSL to the NWSL, just take a breath because this is a crazy thing to say. The NWSL Challenge Cup is next Friday, March 7th. What in the world is going on? And then the NWSL, the season kicks off in 2 weeks. That'll be a week after the Challenge Cup, Friday, March 14th. So March 7th is the Challenge Cup, and March 14th, it's off. We're off again. We're off to the races.
Format for the Challenge Cup, is it as it was last season?
Yep. No changes to the Challenge Cup for the first time in like 3 years straight, I think.
That's why I wanted to clarify for the people. I'm like, is there more rules we need to learn?
Okay, for those who don't know, starting last year, they changed the Challenge Cup to be, instead of a tournament, it is now just one game. And it is one game that will essentially kick off the season. And it will be the Shield winner from the previous regular season playing against, we'll call it the tournament champions. And they will face off in one game. So the only issue now is that last year, Orlando Pride won the Shield. And they also won the entire thing. They also won the tournament, in other words. So they can't really play themselves.
They could.
Well, they could.
I was gonna say, they could. They got the players.
You could just give them the Challenge Cup and say it's not happening this year. But the NWSL has decided not to do that. So the team that came in second in the regular season, Washington Spirit, finished second right behind Orlando. So those two teams are now going to play in the Challenge Cup this year. And it's not a cup. It's one singular game where those two teams will face off. And then a week later, the season will start.
Very well done.
Thank you very much. All right. That's it for us this week at the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
And I've been Ali.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.